GXDAdventures posted yet another Conan update, and the real issue is not that he mentions a change, the real issue is how he decided to frame it. He opens by saying, "We have just discovered that Conan Exiles devs are cutting support for Conan Exiles Legacy and are moving all development and team efforts to the new Unreal Engine release to Conan Exiles Enhanced." He is not just explaining a transition. He is setting a crisis tone from the start. Cutting support. Moving all development and team efforts. It is written to sound severe, sudden, and threatening. Then he briefly mentions the positive side. This is a free upgrade, you keep your character's bases and followers, the upgrade is a massive visual upgrade. But he does not stay there. Almost immediately he pivots into fear framing with, "Why is this stressful? Well," and that is the whole post in one line. It is not just an update, it is an emotional interpretation. He says, "They are allowing servers to keep their structures and characters, but not all legacy mods will be supported on launch day, so unless the majority of mods we use is carried over, or at least the mods that allow character customization, we will be sticking to legacy Conan Exiles." And that right there is the real issue. This is not just some broad problem for every player. This is a GXD problem. A mod-heavy server problem, a customization dependency problem, a server setup that appears to rely so heavily on mods that a major transition hits his operation harder than it hits most people. That is the real pressure point. Then he moves into the most dramatic section of the post. Well, when they cut support, it means if you experience something bad on Legacy, this could be a hacker who has glitched or exploited his way in your base, or somebody who is generally breaking the in-game rules like blocking a resource spawn. They will not help you. That is not neutral language. That is not just explaining support changes. That is doom framing. Instead of simply saying Legacy will not have official support, he jumps straight to hackers, exploiters, rule breakers, and worst-case scenarios, then caps it off with, "They will not help you." That is meant to create pressure. That is meant to create fear. That is meant to make people feel like the situation is darker than just support is ending. And honestly, that part is especially rich coming from him, because he is talking about hackers, exploiters, and people not following rules like he is some authority on consistent rule enforcement. But from my perspective, this is also someone who has had no problem failing to follow his own Discord rules consistently, then exempting himself from those rules when he gets called out. So when he suddenly wants to posture like the responsible authority, warning everyone else about rule breakers, it rings hollow. He is very comfortable talking about other people breaking rules. He is much less comfortable applying those same standards to himself. Then he adds more urgency with, "The window to get their support and questions answered is running out." Again, that is pressure language. It is not just, "This is changing," it is, "Time is running out." That is the pattern. Take a real change, wrap it in dramatic wording, push the most fearful interpretation, make the audience feel stress. And that is why I would not call this a straight update, because it is not just information, it is narrative framing. It takes a real issue and packages it like a crisis. And when you strip all that away, the simpler truth underneath it looks like this. GXD's server appears to rely heavily on mods, especially customization mods, and that makes this transition more disruptive for his setup than for a lot of other players. I know this as fact because I was one of the 3 original people in his Discord and Conan servers and was banned for calling out his hypocrisy directly. That is the real story. Not that everything is collapsing, not that this is some instant apocalypse, not that every worst-case scenario he lists is now the defining reality. The real issue is that his operation seems heavily dependent on Legacy and heavily dependent on mods, so naturally this kind of change puts pressure on the way he personally runs things. That is the truth at the center of the post. Everything else is the dramatic packaging around it.